Good evening, all. This is the briefing meeting of the West Jordan City Planning Commission on December 17th, 2024. We have 4 commissioners present, 3 absent. Those present are Commissioner Hatch, Commissioner Gonzalez, Commissioner Thomas, and myself. The others are absent. I believe in terms of needing a briefing, the only thing we would need one on is item number 3, the Prattplex rezone. So Larry, is that yours to brief us on? Megan?
Yeah, so this is just a rezone of one property off of 6200 South by Reams. Property's 0.81 acres and it's agriculture A5 right now, and they're proposing to go to general commercial. Their intention is to do a daycare or preschool there. So that's the reason for the zone change. It meets the future land use map, which is neighborhood commercial. So we're recommending a positive approval or positive recommendation to the city council.
And the building that's there now remains there, it's just changing
Yeah.
surfaces.
Yes, there's an existing building that's been being used as an office since it was annexed into the city. So,
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Megan? Seeing none, we will go to who for training? Duncan Murray?
So I've got the training tonight,
Larry's got
Chair.
the training. Before you go on, let me just note that Commissioner Allen and Commissioner Hollingsworth have joined us.
Okay. Do they bring donuts? So like, oh, So what I want to talk about tonight is subdivision and improvement guarantees, and that's improvement guarantees of subdivisions. And when we get to that part, an improvement guarantee is basically a bond posted with the city, and Duncan can probably fill us in on some changes in the law in the last couple of years when we get to that point. But everything in land use in municipality should begin with a general plan. Now, I'm not saying that every municipality in the state of Utah follows that, but in West Jordan we do. So we have the 2022 general plan that the Planning Commission recommended to the City Council, and the City Council adopted. And so the general plan is a document. It's advisory document. And so what that means is it really doesn't have any legal teeth, but it is the will of the community. And the way an advisory document is implemented is through the zoning ordinance and subdivision regulations. So that's how any of the master plans or general plan in the city is administered, is through ordinance, because they're all recommendations: water master plans, transportation master plans. They don't have any regulatory teeth, but they influence how the ordinances are created in the city. And so I don't want to talk about the zoning ordinance tonight because we talk a lot about that. And as you can see, zoning really is a use table, but it also regulates lot area, building setbacks, frontage, heights, landscaping, fencing, things like that, accessory structures. But it really is anything associated with a use on a piece of property. Now, the zoning and subdivision regulations do have teeth. They do have authority because they're approved by ordinance by the city council after receiving a recommendation from the planning commission. And over the years, many of you have seen hundreds of recommendations to the city council for ordinances and design requirements, because in West Jordan, all of our engineering standards and design requirements, as well as subdivision regulations, they're all what we would call land use regulations. And so they all have teeth, and we can enforce them. And so the difference between the use table or the zoning and the subdivision regulation, it talks about the types of subdivisions, what needs to go in the plat, how it's served, lot design, block design, road design, utility, and all those type of design requirements that aren't in the zoning ordinance. Now, the zoning will talk about the use, the subdivision regulation talks about how the property is set up, how it should be serviced, in the future. And all of this, of course, municipalities are what we call a creature of the state. We can't do anything without this enabling legislation that comes from the state of Utah. Cities couldn't exist without this enabling legislation from the state of Utah, because we are not the United Cities of America, we're the United States of America. And so, as we all were taught in seventh grade, states have their own individual rights, and the whole country has individual rights. And this is how the state chooses to regulate use within its boundaries, is they give some of that authority to municipalities. And it's very specific. Cities can't go outside of the specific enabling legislation that is given to them. And we have an attorney sitting here, and Duncan, did I describe that accurately?
Yeah, that's accurate.
See, it just, yeah, okay, there we go. And so, because of that enabling legislation, we still have to, unless we want to go back every single time to the enabling legislation, we pass ordinances. And in the enabling legislation, or the law, as I'll call it from now on, because I'm fumbling over my words, it says that a municipality can adopt a subdivision ordinance. Now, it doesn't say you shall, it says they may, or you can adopt it. Well, most cities choose to do it because it's easier than going back to the law every time. And a ordinance can be much, much more specific than the law is, because all the law really says is you can adopt an ordinance, or you can look at the law, but you can only enforce what's little bits in the law. And and as you can see in the ordinance, if you're looking there, really what is focusing on is the health, safety, and welfare of the residents. And so that all harkens back to the general plan. General plan says we want to plan our city in an orderly fashion. We want transportation networks. We want utilities there. We want it to be safe. We want it to be beautiful. We want it to be clean. Those are all big picture. It's adopted. It's implemented through the ordinances. So let's talk a couple of different subdivisions. So from your years of experience on the Planning Commission, what's the difference between a major and a minor subdivision? Now, this is very specific to West Jordan ordinance. So just throw your best guess out there. There's no bad answer. Because I'll correct you if you're wrong. So any takers, or should I just? Okay. Trish, I did not. So a minor subdivision is 9 lots or less, and there's no dedication to the city of West Jordan. Simple enough. So if you have 9 lots and you're not granting property to West Jordan City, you can proceed with a minor subdivision. And we do a few of those a year. Now, major subdivision is if you have 10 lots or more, and it doesn't matter if you're not dedicating property. If you're doing 10 lots or more, it's still a major subdivision. And what you'll see is 2 or 3 lots come before the Planning Commission, but they're dedicating a roadway. They're dedicating right of way. And as staff, we cannot accept that dedication. That's the Planning Commission, according to the law. That's one of your duties, is to look at that and say, yes, we like where this road is. It matches the master transportation plan, blah, 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 all the things that we never tell you about what you're doing, but that's what you're doing. And so major subdivision, 10 lots or more, it's a dedication. Now, an LLA means a lot line adjustment. That only occurs between lots, and it used to be specifically adjustment between two lots in a subdivision, but the state of Utah, in their infinite wisdom, has created that where you can make a lot line adjustment between a lot and a parcel. Now, a lot is a numbered parcel in a subdivision plat. A parcel is something that's been surveyed and recorded at the county, is not in a subdivision. And to me, that didn't make a lot of sense for the state of Utah to do that, but there must have been somebody's relative that was having problems somewhere. And so that's my facetiousness coming out. But anyway, so you can adjust a lot line and a parcel line together. It used to be that all the lots had to be in the same subdivision, but now you can adjust property boundaries between two different subdivision plots. And so it becomes a little more complicated. And I think if you remember, last summer I brought an amendment to the lot line adjustment ordinance to you, and that's all reflected of what the state law required. So as these subdivisions, what the regulations do, it tells you what and I'll go on here. And so the plat requirements, so the plat is how the lots are laid out on the subdivision, but it also, so how are these lots laid out? Do they meet the zoning ordinance? Do they meet the subdivision regulation? So it needs to have how it's arranged, the name of the subdivision, the survey requirements, signature blocks, lot descriptions, road layout, dedication, and notes. Those are some of the things on a plat. Now that plat is, we do electronic reviews now, but at the very end, and George and Jay, and I think Ammon, and Trish, you've signed plats before, and they're that material made out of Mylar, because everything is electronic up until that point, and that's what you have to record at the county, because they actually keep a physical copy of the property description at the county. It's stored for all of time, and I think that, I don't know why they do that. Maybe Duncan knows why they do it, but I think somebody just wants a physical copy in case the electronic world goes awry. We still have a physical copy, and they're made out of Mylar, which is a material that doesn't disintegrate. It's not acid paper and that type of thing. So it's very interesting. And so we go all the way electronically, and then at the end we have this physical thing that needs to be recorded. Ability to service. Now, in West Jordan, really the ability to service it's certainly enforced at the subdivision, but anytime you do a zone change or a land use map amendment, we won't take that forward to the council unless that property is serviceable. Because we don't want to approve a 100-lot subdivision and not have water for it or sewer capacity for it. So it really is, that is done at the entitlement or the zone change. But it is heavily reviewed at the subdivision. In our utility department, they will look at the utility design, how it's laid out, how it fits in with our system, and all of that. And they're all professional civil engineers that look at this. And they don't design it, but they review the design. And a lot of times they have a lot of changes before the planning commission ever sees those documents. So the city has adopted standards, and I know the planning commission over the years has looked at different standards. And as you can see, I've just put a typical road section. And we do that so that not every subdivision that comes before you has a different design of road or sewer or water. Why do you think that's important? That's everything standardized, or is it important? What do you think, Ammon? Why is standards important? You're an engineer, so.
I know, right? I think I know the answer to this. It's important because the city has to have some sort of, um, I completely lost my train of thought and wording. We want to have consistency for garbage pickup, accessibility, snowplow removal, or snow removal, all of those kinds of things.
Because one of the parts of a subdivision approval, a major subdivision, is you're dedicating that roadway. You're dedicating everything that's underneath that road, which is water and sewer and storm sewer. And the city wants to be very, very careful about what they accept, and they want everything to meet our standards. Because guess what? The city and residents of the city get to pay for the maintenance of that forever. And so we want we want things to be built the way we want them to be built, so that we know, and they have very, very detailed reports on how long the system should last, what it's made out of, how it should be installed, so that we get the best system installed, and those are all based on those engineering standards. And over the years, our engineering department has put a lot of work into these standards, and I think they all follow, what is it, AASHTO, or there's different professional, guidelines that they follow, so they meet the best safety regulations. They work according to, the best engineering standards. I know you work in water, Ammon, but when you guys put a water line in, you want it built to your regulations, because you don't want it going from plastic to ductile to concrete. You want everything the same, because you have to maintain that forever. And you want to know where it's at, what side of the road it's on, is it in the middle of the road, what's around it. So it gets fairly detailed. There's a lot of developers that don't understand it because they look at it just as a cost to them. And I understand, I like money, they like to make money, but when they're granting or dedicating something to us, we want something that's going to be maintainable and the most cost effective. All right, so lot design. So, we have a whole, a few letter points on how a lot line should be, how a lot should be designed. We want everything to have frontage. We want, to talk about the size of it. If you look in West Jordan, in certain areas, there are some goofy lots that go in a pie-shaped pattern. We like things to be at right angles. We like them because they're more usable. It's easier to fit a house on it. They're easier to use. So there's regulations about lots. There's blocks and roads, street length, block length. Why do you think that? Is it important that block length? Is that important? If you're walking, it's very important, because, to get to the house that's right in back of you, you only have to walk 1,500 feet that way, and then you go back another 1,500 feet, and so we have you have to put cross streets in at reasonable points, so that it makes easier for pedestrians, children, kids going to school, that type of thing. It minimizes cut through traffic through residential neighborhoods, and all of those things are how we regulate, so that they're enjoyable neighborhoods. We don't put cul-de-sacs at an end of a mile-long road, because that creates fire issues. We want 2 points of connection to every subdivision, so people aren't, their life's not in peril. If some emergency happens, they're able to get out, one way or the other. So the blocks and roads, their compliance with the master transportation plan. It talks about half streets, cul-de-sacs, turnarounds, street names, dedications, utilities, sidewalks, and the soil. cul-de-sacs have to be a certain width, so garbage trucks can turn around without backing up. Fire trucks can turn around and back up, and so I can turn around without having to back up. So you like cul-de-sacs, don't you? You like cul-de-sacs, don't you?
Almost as much as roundabout.
Okay. So any questions on standards, you know, what the subdivision ordinance does, you know, it implements the general plan. That's one of the things out in the zoning ordinance. Improvement guarantees or bonds. And over the last few years, we used to do bonds for public and non-public improvements, but the state of Utah, remember, we're creatures of the state, told us that we cannot bond for non-public improvements any longer, which is, what is it, landscaping, fencing, playground equipment, swimming pools, stuff like that. But we can withhold occupancy if they're not constructed as designed and we go out. So we can give a temporary occupancy, but they won't get full occupancy until they're built, you know, built according to what they promised the city. But a bond is for public improvements. That means streets, all the utility systems, sidewalks, all of those things. And so those bonds, what they guarantee is that for 1 year that it will not fail, that they'll build it according to what the design standards say, and that it won't fail. And we have a warranty after. We hold that for 1 year because a lot of times they'll have a lot of construction equipment come in and they'll break up the curb, they'll break up the sidewalk. You know, a sidewalk never was meant to hold a cement truck. So they have to pull a lot of that out and replace it. And if they fail to do it or they argue with us, we have a bond that we can go in and replace it with. Thankfully, in West Jordan, we haven't had to use that system a lot, but we do have bonds. And they can either deposit the actual amount of cash, which in some developments could be millions of dollars. Not many of them like to do that. Or they can give us a letter of credit. What most larger developments will do is called construct first. So they'll go in and they will construct all the roadways, sidewalks, utility systems without the city actually accepting the dedication, you know, or this design of the dedication. And at that point, they only have to put 10% of the value. So instead of 3 million, they put 300,000 in a bond. And then they'll record the plat. We'll hold that 300,000 for a year. And then they can sell houses and everything has worked out thus far. Or they can choose to record the plat first and deposit the whole $3 million, say, for example, just a random figure I pulled out. So any questions on bonds? So, you know, the city is protected through its ordinances, its regulations. We make sure everything's constructed properly. And then at the end, we have an improvement guarantee to make sure that it's built correctly. So,
Can I chime in on a couple
Yeah.
things, Larry? So, yeah, one of the types of ways that developers like to bond for, it's not currently allowed in our code, is the surety bond. It's through an insurance company instead of a bank or instead of with cash with us. Generally, that doesn't protect the city very well, and the money's not accessible as well if it's needed. And I think it is something in the legislature that's talked about from time to time. Like I say, the challenge is it's through an insurance company. You got to make a claim and it takes a while and claims can be denied, as opposed to if we have cash on hand, we can use it. And in addition, for a bond being used, as Larry described, if something fails, I think another reason it's used is if it's a record first situation and a developer or land use applicant doesn't complete the construction of the public improvements, the city can take that money, put it out for bid, hire a substitute developer who can then put the improvements in. And that's not just a hypothetical. When I worked for the city of Perry, we did that once, where a developer did not finish putting the improvements in, put it out for bid, got somebody else, and they put the improvements in. So it is good to have those bonds on hand. And they are, as Larry described, mainly for public improvements. There are a few exceptions where it can be used for private improvements, like if it's a trail that connects to a public trail system, or somehow it's connected indirectly. There's a few exceptions in the code where we can require bonding for public improvements, especially if it's required by a development agreement and it was entered into voluntarily to require that to be bonded for. Yeah, so those are the couple of.
So yeah, to dovetail on with what has been said about surety bonds, if you and your, well, if you happen to be at a holiday party and this topic comes up, the legislative session is right around the corner. And so last legislative session, there was a bill that was pushing for surety bonds to be required as one of the options. We are hearing that that'll likely be another topic of conversation. It really is not a good position for the city to be in for the reasons Duncan has explained. It's the likelihood of a developer just walking away and not completing the improvements goes up dramatically if they're just paying for an insurance policy, basically. And so Larry's right. Gratefully, over the years, we have not had to mess around with these bonds because 9 times out of 10, that bond amount is not going to cover the actual improvements. They're already discounted. And so bottom line, we want stuff built to our standard because we've got to maintain it. And we want things to function long term. And, you know, bonding is a very important part of completing these projects. So just plant that seed. If for some reason you're at a wild holiday party and bonds come up, you're at the wrong party. But you are, jokes aside, you as appointed officials, you may have people ask you what your opinion is because things, you know, people may dig into some of these bills but Larry's done a great job. Duncan, you always do a great job too. If you have questions about legislative bills or drafts, or you read the paper or the internet, if you got questions, bring them to us. We're happy to be a resource to you. So.
As long as they're not about moderate income housing.
Thank you, Mr. Gardner. It is 5:54, so we will consider briefing meeting closed. It's could be 5:58. Okay, and we'll reconvene when Julie tells us to.
1 minute.
1 minute. Welcome all to the West Jordan City Planning Commission on December 17th, 2024. All commissioners are present with the exception of Commissioner Roberts. We will begin tonight with the flag ceremony led once again by the indomitable Jay Thomas.
Please face the flag and repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Go ahead and be seated.
Thank you, Commissioner Thomas. Item number 2 on the agenda is to review and approve the minutes of the December 3rd Planning Commission meeting. Is there any discussion on the minutes? Commissioner Hatch,
I'll make a motion to approve.
Commissioner Hollingsworth?
I second that motion.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The motion is unanimous. Item number 3, public hearing for Prattplex rezone. Is Dan Pratt in the audience? No? Okay, then we will go to whoever's presenting on behalf of the city. Is that Megan?
Thank you. So this is for a rezone for just one property. That's 0.81 acres. You can see the location there. It's off of 6200 South and Dixie Drive. It's just north of Reams. So there's an existing building there. It's been zoned agriculture A5 since it was annexed into the city in the 1981. So basically it's been a legal non-conforming use since then. The applicant isn't proposing any changes to the site or building. Their intention is to use it as a daycare and preschool. So that's the reason for their application to make it general commercial, so that a daycare would be an administrative conditional use. So it'll have to go through that process as well for that specific use. So this is the current zoning. It's A5. And then this is the map of the proposed zoning to general commercial. It meets the future land use map, which shows it as neighborhood commercial, which matches all that surrounding property to the east and south. And so since it matches the future land use map and the surrounding properties, staff is recommending that you make a positive recommendation to the city council for this rezone. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Megan? Comments? The only thing I would say is I'm surprised that this hasn't been rezoned a long time ago, so it seems to me like a very natural thing to do at this point. This item was noticed for public hearing. So public hearing is now open. Do we have anybody here who wishes to speak on the item? If you wish to, come to the microphone. And anybody on phone or online may also comment.
There's nobody online.
There is nobody online. Public hearing is now closed. Was somebody, Commissioner Allen?
Based on the information and findings set forth in the staff report and upon the evidence and explanation received today, I move that the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation to the City Council to rezone the parcel comprising 0.81 acres and located at 3703 West, 6200 South from an A5 zone to a CG zone.
Commissioner Gonzalez,
I will second that motion.
A motion has been made and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously. The final item on the agenda, item number 4, is message of appreciation. Mayor Dirk Burton.
Well, I certainly appreciate you letting me give the message of appreciation during this time. I'm most appreciative during this time of the year when it's the most wonderful time of the year. Thank you for being here. And thank you for what you have done this past year for our city. Our city has done some great things this past year. We've made some great growth. We're doing some superior things. And thank you for being here to represent the public, to listen to them, and also sometimes to help educate them in small ways and to move the work forward. This summer, we had work happening on 6200 South, 7800 South, 90th South, 13th West, Redwood Road, and a bunch of other smaller streets that I can't think of right now. Oh, 70th South. And anyways, some smaller ones I can't think of. And some people said, that's terrible. Why are you doing all this work? Because it's making West Jordan better. That's why we're doing this work. Well, why do you have to do it all at the same time? Because we haven't done it in years past, and it's catching up to us, and we need to do that now. And because we got the funding now, and we do it when we have the funding available, and that's how it kind of determines. And the longer we wait, the more it costs, and the quicker we can get it, the better it is that we can enjoy it and move forward. Not to mention other growth that we've had that's happened in the city this past year with different developments that have happened, both residential and commercial, and those that haven't happened yet, but you have paved the way for it to happen. I got a call from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. They said, we're beginning our designs for this temple that's going to be in your city. We want to know what things we need to do to make sure they fit in so that when it goes to the Planning Commission and the council, there won't be any problems. And I said, well, we kind of prepared ahead for that. We had an inkling of where that might happen. So the zoning's been in place already for it. And there's no restrictions for what you normally do for temples in that area. And so it won't need to go to the city council at all. And once you get your concept plan put together and your design, then you can bring it to the Planning Commission. And I think it's going to go just fine. And no neighbors will complain because there are no neighbors there. And then those neighbors that end up being there will go there because they choose to be there. And so they were really thrilled about that. It doesn't go that smooth in all cities. But because of the work that you have done to help prepare for that with the master development plan on that project that's happening out there, the terrain, it put all the ducks in a row and helps things go smoothly. So thank you for making that happen. And there have been some times, I know, because I've received some comments, and I'm sure and when I receive those comments, I know it's not Dirk Burton they're talking to, it's the mayor they're talking to. So when people complain to you, it's not the Jay Thomases or the George Wynns, it's the Planning Commission that they're talking to. And just realize that that's where the frustration is. It isn't with you. And so I appreciate you being here and sometimes taking some of those arrows and just realizing that those arrows are usually because of the, I can't remember, the flashings on the feathers, what's that called? Flashing, so I was right. In their mind, they're straight, but they're not. And those arrows sometimes curve, and only the reason you get hit is because they didn't have a straight shot. But thank you for what you have done this past year. Thank you, Ammon. So it's been great. You've done a great job, and I'm looking forward to another year. Now you know that because it came through your body that we're working on dissolving the Board of Adjustments. The council is going to hear that tomorrow, and by what I've heard from the council, I anticipate that's going to go through. So that's another change our city is making. So effective next year, we'll have no Board of Adjustments. It'll just go to an ALJ. And there's lots of others as well, such as some parking things and there's a long list. But you have been part of that. You have helped make our city a greater place, a better place to live and to have life and to work. The other day I was driving down 90th South during rush hour in the morning, and I was thinking, do you know what? I remember driving this like just 10 years ago, And the traffic going westbound in the morning was light and the traffic going eastbound was heavy. Well, now if you notice, the traffic going eastbound and westbound are heavy both directions. I thought, that is great. And that's largely a part because of the industrial area growth that we've had over in the southwest quadrant, which will continue to grow. That means people aren't leaving as many West Jordan to go to work. Some of them are coming to West Jordan, and even better than that are some people who live in West Jordan are staying in West Jordan to go to work, which reduces traffic on our streets during rush hour, which reduces the wear and tear on our roads, which saves us some monies there as well. So there's other good things that are happening. And as that industrial area continues to grow, I think that'll continue to shift. And we won't have to do those silly reversible lanes like they have on 5400 South that makes people pull their hair out trying to figure out which direction they are, which lane they're in, and what time of day they're supposed to be over there. So there are some good things happening here. So I just want to reach out and say thank you for that. And thank you for being flexible when I've made changes as we continue to go forward. And I appreciate what you've done. And there might be a time or two when some of you done something I don't want, and I reach out and I talk to you about that. And so if I haven't talked to you about that, that means I'm happy with what you've done. I'm happy with what every one of you have done. Every one of you have done a great job here. So thank you for what you've done. Thank you for making our city great. And let's look forward to next year. And do you have any questions for me before I stop? That's great. That's real good. I just have one question for you because this issue of parking has come up a few times. And do you know why Santa does not have to pay to park? Because it's on the roof. I mean, because it's on the house. Sorry. Thank you very much. Have a Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Mayor Burton. Before we close, I would like to acknowledge that this will be my last meeting with the Planning Commission. My term is up, so I'm moving on. I want to express my appreciation to my fellow commissioners. I deeply appreciate your service, and I'm honored to serve with you. I also want to thank the mayor for the privilege of serving, and I thank all of the rest of you for the privilege of serving. I would say to anybody who asks that we live in a great city and it's being managed by great people. And I have nothing but the highest esteem for the work that you do and for the your tremendous professionalism and kindness and generosity. Without exception, you all have been just marvelous people to work with. So thank you. With that, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn, which, so what a surprise.
I figure your last official thing will be, I will make a motion that we adjourn.
That motion is accepted. We are adjourned.
See you checking out the crowd. Yeah. Pretty easy day. Yeah, this is